Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive. This week, I continue my series on the history of BattleTech with part 2 of That Thing the Word of Blake Did. Again, I can't say the name because it's a word that begins with J and in some cultures means holy war, which is what the Word of Blake saw it as. This week, I'm going to take a look at the main section of it. This is going to be a very quick overview of it, and my goal is to cover the area from where we ended last time, just until operations begin taking place on Terra. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy as we talk about when the inner sphere went to heck. So a number of things happened after the Word of Blake went overt in their little thing. One of these is Comstar under Presenter Marshal Davian made an attempt to retake Terra. This was called Case White, and it failed horribly. Comstar sent every available ship that they had and every amount of forces that they could spare, and they sent them to Terra. And just as what happened with the Wolf's Dragoons attack on Mars, nobody came back. Now, one thing did kind of happen with Comstar's Case White, though, that didn't really happen with the Wolf's Dragoons attack on Mars. People survived. There were Comstar forces who, while they lost their mechs, they managed to eject and get away from the battlefield. And they sort of began a resistance on Terra for the rest of the time of the thing that the Word of Blake did. Now, the next thing, and this is still considered a mystery as to how it happened, or who did it even. But there was a coalition forming. The first attempt at a coalition after Uncle Chandy's forces had failed. Now, they were using a lot of the intel Uncle Chandy had gotten them, but what happened is you had Victor and a number of other people come together on Ark Royal, and they were trying to form a coalition to deal with what the Word of Blake was doing. And this wasn't just a coalition of inner sphere powers. Jade Falcons, Wolves, all the clans sent people. All the inner sphere located clans sent people. You had some of the elite mercenary commanders, including Maeve Wolf of Wolf's Dragoons, gathered. And you had a number of other people. And someone set a bomb off. It took out about half of this who's who of the inner sphere. And it took out characters that we've known for years. Maeve Wolf, Diana Pride, among others. And this caused a massive setback. This prevented, really, any attempt at a coalition from forming again for a couple years. The coalition that would eventually form again, but the coalition that forms would be under someone very different. See, up until this time, Victor Davian had been the coalition builder. He would form the groups that would deal with any threat. And he failed. And he failed spectacularly in that he actually lost his allies. Not in the case of the allies felt betrayed, but the allies were dead. And so that caused a major impact there. And then the Word of Blake started acting much more overtly. On top of all of that, worlds in the Word of Blake Protectorate would be heavily militarized. Forces would drop on them, make sure they were secure. And in cases where worlds started to rebel, well, that's what nuclear fire was for. Or chemical weapons, or other atrocities. One of the Word of Blake battle armors was actually considered in one of its configurations to be a walking war crime because it had so many flamers on it that it could only be used for one purpose: torching cities. But you have this going on. The Word of Blake have started deploying their Celestial Series Omni-Mechs, their Demon-class battle armors, their Spectral fighters. All of these things are being piloted by Mene Domine, Hands of the Master. Cybernetically enhanced warriors who, in the case of the mechs and aerospace, have an implant called a VDNI, Vehicular Direct Neural Interface. This means they get to react with their vehicles so much better. They're able to employ techniques that the rest of the Ionosphere can't. Just because a normal neural helmet just transfers the pilot's sense of balance. The VDNI made the mech and the pilot one. The pilot moves his arm, the mech moved its arm, type thing. There were issues that got fixed in later integrations of the VDNI, but the Mene Domine were the Word of Blake's answer to the clans. These were the armies they were going to gift the Star League with to annihilate the clans. But the Star League fell apart. And at this point, forces in the Ionosphere are still trying to figure out what's going on. There's still this massive fog of war over the entire Ionosphere. For some reason, the Black Dragon Society has risen on Luthien, and Nova Cats and loyal Combine troops are fighting against the Black Dragon. And then suddenly Ghost Bears come in system, burn hot, drop in, and start fighting the Mane Domine that have been supporting the Black Dragon. Like, literally, they just come in, drop in, go straight for the biggest entrenched positions of Mane Domine, and hammer their way through. And as they pass, in their wake, scientist casts are coming, getting genetic samples from the warriors killed. Because someone had planted a rumor out that perhaps the Mane Domine were descended from the Not Named clan. A clan that had been utterly annihilated for absolutely heinous crimes. And its name was stricken from the clan records. It was even any contributions it put into clan society and clan history were stripped. But that's a story for another time. And then the Ghost Bears, upon getting their data, pulled off world. Snow Raven forces were arriving in Outworld's Alliance. There's been a lot of interactions going on between the Ravens and the Outworld's Alliance. And these are because a Raven exploratory ship encountered some Outworld's Alliance pilots in ancient fighters and had their heads handed to them by these fighters. So the Snow Ravens kind of developed a sense of respect. And so they'd begun conducting trade with the Outworld's Alliance. And one of their ships, one of their flagships of the Snow Ravens, was actually getting refueled in the Outworld's Alliance when a series of dropships deployed nukes. And these were apparently cargo ships, but they deployed nukes, taking out the flagship of the Snow Ravens. And that's what would eventually pull the Ravens into things. And yes, the Snow Ravens were one of the homeworld clans. There was stuff going on in the homeworlds, but that's something for another time as well. I'm only going to be talking about the stuff in the inner sphere. But you have this sort of stuff going on. And then slowly people start putting together, it's the word of Blake doing this. And they don't know what to do. But during this time, a man escapes from a Word of Blake detention center on the planet of Kittery. And this man will change everything. It was a small facility that got broken out of. But one man led a daring escape. And from that daring escape, he turned around and raided other detention facilities, broke their prisoners out, stole mechs, vehicles, aircraft from the Word of Blake. And slowly, he reclaimed the world of Kittery. Then, he took dropships, stole Word of Blake jump ships, and began hitting nearby Word of Blake held worlds. Now, Kittery wasn't on the front lines, so it wasn't heavily reinforced. The nearby worlds weren't expecting an attack either. But slowly, worlds began to fall to the forces of this one man. This one man by the name of Devlin Stone. And once he started attacking, once he started taking worlds, he got noticed by the Word of Blake, but also by other people. He started putting an offer out for anyone to join a coalition under his banner. Now, he's an unknown entity. He's taking these worlds. For who? Ostensibly, for themselves. He was ostensibly liberating the worlds. But no one really knew anything about him. In fact, ultimately, who Devlin Stone was, his background, where he came from, where he got his training, all of that is never revealed. Devlin Stone will always be the interstellar man of mystery. But Prince Victor met him, or Presenter Marshal Victor met him, and spoke approvingly of him. Because even if Victor's not putting together the coalition, his word carried weight, even if symbolically. And what ended up happening was a number of forces flocked to his banner and began the drive towards Terra. You had the Swords of Light from Karita. You had the Merrick Guards under Alice Rousset Merrick. You had a major Lyran force under the greatest Lyran general of all time, Thomas Hogarth, the man who codified the core of the Lyran battle tactic with these mighty words. While there might be uses for lighter mechs like Banshees and Zeus, the heart of the Lyran line will always be mechs like the Atlas, the Fafnir, and the Devastator. Nothing can stand up to a Lyran wall of steel. I might be paraphrasing a little because I don't have the exact quote in front of me. But that's the gist of what he said. And he was very important he would take worlds and make sure to have social balls to celebrate the victory. And then, before his forces would leave, they would make sure that there was a great celebration to honor their troops before they went on to the next world. Remember, Thomas Hogarth was the only one who could take Sydney, which we'll get to in the next video. But ultimately, you had this coalition driving towards Terra, slowly fighting the Word of Blake back. And the Word of Blake, as they were falling back, began to use nukes casually. Salted nukes, in fact. With the basic principle of, if they couldn't have the world, no one else would either. Note this flagrant and casual use of nuclear weapons really got the clans that had joined angry with them. Note that the Ghost Bears sent the pride of their fleet, the first Leviathan to itself, the Roselhog, into the Word of Blake Protectorate. And it, plus the rest of the Word of Blake, the rest of the Ghost Bear fleet, the rest of the Snow Raven fleet, the rest of the Nova Cats, even the Wolves and Jade Falcons sent their fleets, along with the remnants of the Free Worlds League fleet, the largest fleet in the Inner Sphere, and the Davian and the Lyran fleets. Karita sent its greatest ships. The Karitan fleet, though, wasn't the best for fighting other warships, with the exception of their flagship, the Lair of Mighty Worms. Their ships were best for dealing with escort, for keeping fighters away from the battle line. And this fleet is what gathered together to make the jump into Terra. And then comes the real fight of that thing the Word of Blake did. And next week, I will talk about the liberation of Terra from the Word of Blake. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.